Hey, Stacy.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. How are you holding up with all your virtual teaching?
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's getting a little bit better.
Yeah.
Grades, having to do grades this week, though, that was rough.
Uh-huh.
Um, but still putting in long hours. So, yeah.
Well, and then I saw something. I get alerts from Montgomery County, just public schools, just for the weather.
Yeah.
And but there was something yesterday about a framework for hybrid or going whatever.
For bringing kids back, it's, I don't think it's going to happen by the timeline that they want it to happen, but
Right.
they had to please the parents that were having an uproar. Oh, you guys aren't doing anything to get our kids back in the school.
Right. Right.
It is what it is. And then I'm taking a nice mental break from Facebook.
Yeah, I actually unfriended somebody this week
Oh,
because that person who I knew way, way, way back when, she was the preschool teacher for Elisheva back in Massachusetts. So when Elisheva was 2 years old, this woman was the preschool teacher, and she is a rabid Republican Trump supporter. So much that she was just posting not her own words, but she kept
right.
reposting conspiracy theories and
And that's when it gets annoying.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I just decided to I didn't need to read that. And I
Yeah,
don't go on Facebook to read those things. I go on Facebook to see what's new with people.
exactly.
Yeah. So
How hard is it for you to not vocalize your opinion? Because I know you're not supposed to. Like, how hard is
right.
that for you?
Right. Remarkably, it's not so hard. I don't feel a real need to like be, so vocal about this. It's pretty clear in what I speak and what I teach, the who I'm
Right.
in favor of. But and I don't need to be doing. I mean, and I'm different. My colleagues don't shy away from posting on their. I think some colleagues of mine have their own personal Facebook page and
Mm-hmm.
then the rabbinic Facebook page, like Stephen Abraham,
Mm-hmm.
um, and a few others like that. So they might distinguish what they're posting by, which person they are when they're posting it.
Gotcha.
But so I don't have two Facebook identities, and yeah. I don't know. There's also the listserv for conservative rabbis that used to be rabidly political, from those on the far right to those on the far left, and they would just go at it on the listserv. And it finally ended. Somebody finally had the authority to just ban a few people from the listserv. It's kind of hard to keep rabbis quiet, though. It's just funny to me because I think I'm not such a talkative rabbi, and I don't think I'm such a egotist that needs to hear himself talk. But it's
Right.
remarkable to me to see how many rabbis out there do have a very, very big ego.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know of at least one in Montgomery County. At least I'm assuming he's still there. I have no idea, but we'll just say down in the Potomac Bethesda area.
Yeah, I think I know who you're talking about. And yes, he is still the rabbi at B'nai Tzedek.
Yes, because mom used to work at the preschool there, and
Oh,
he used to go around shaking people's hand, women's hands, looking to see the size of the rock.
oh,
Everywhere.
uh, yeah.
Are letting people in now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. That's funny.
Yeah. Jules, I know you are muted, but just wanted to say Shabbat Shalom, and we missed you last night at services. Hope everything's okay. And Judy, you too.
Now you're unmuted. Hang on. Technical difficulties. There we are.
Oh,
You're down at the Bay or something today?
We're in Annapolis.
Very nice.
As soon as we figure out. There we go.
Very good. I guess you got jealous. Everybody else had a virtual background and you wanted to get in on the act.
That's right. If I can get the corner. The corner's driving me nuts. We're not against a wall.
Oh, okay.
So there's not a good wall to do this on.
Uh-huh.
So we're improvising.
Okay. Well, it looks good.
Don't look at that corner, that's all. There you go. Okay, Dad, how about that?
I'm ready to go jump in.
There you go. That's right. It's supposed to be warm enough today to do it too.
Get your bathing suit.
Yeah.
Get out there. Maybe.
That's on. Live
Okay.
stream is on. I turned it on. Thank you. Thanks for the reminder, Jules.
Yeah, but how do you make him not so red?
Yeah, I don't know.
What's that?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm sunburned. I was outside this.
Yeah.
Well, that's true. There you go. Let's go with that story. I have a better one. The rabbi said he missed you at services last night.
Yeah, we did miss you last night.
I was not feeling right.
Oh.
I went to sleep and I was not feeling good. And I slept right through.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You know, in the Amida services, where we talk about, we've added the females.
Yeah.
And there's the word for the word guardian
Yeah,
is used vis-a-vis the females, but not as to the males.
it's the English translation. It's and it's based. It says Magain Avraham Ufoked Sarah. So that, let's see how the English translates it. It says, just one second. Shield of Abraham and guardian of Sarah. It's not really the best translation. It really is the one who remembers Sarah, because that's in this morning's Torah reading, chapter 21. It says, Va'adonai pakad et Sarah, that God remembered Sarah. In other words, of the promise at the beginning of the portion that she'd have a baby in a year's time. So I don't know, I guess the English translators wanted it to be parallel, shield and guardian, but it's really shield and rememberer or something like that. Sharon, Shabbat
Hey,
Shalom.
hey,
Oh, you're going outside.
I'm gonna try because
Yeah.
I'm tired of wearing a mask.
Right. Is it warm enough already outside? I haven't been out.
I put on a sweatshirt and I figured with my
Dennis?
tallis it'll be okay.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think it's a little. but
It'll
it's
warm
sunny.
up soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chapter 21.
Hi, everyone. Shabbat
Hi,
shalom.
Cheryl. Shabbat Shalom.
Yeah, we just walked the dogs. I think it'll be warm enough. It's not
Yeah.
that bad out today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Sharon, are you wearing a mask in the house because Dennis just got back?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out last night, why is Sharon wearing a mask?
They're staying downstairs. They get tested tomorrow.
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay. Actually, the county's doing a better job. Tuesday, I saw Ivy Mount out here is doing
Yeah.
testing, and I drove by, and actually I got the negative results yesterday.
Huh.
I just did it in case we end up deciding to go to Boston around Christmas.
Right.
We want to be able to get tested in a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I figured if I've been okay through the pandemic working, I must be doing something right.
Yes. So how many patients do you see on average every day?
Between 4 and 6.
Okay.
So, it's been pretty busy.
Yeah.
A few people retired, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
In a few months, I have someone looking for a job.
Yeah.
Well, I would not do home care as a first job.
They're all having trouble finding jobs, is
Oh,
what
really?
Zach told me. Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't start with home care because you don't have supervision, and you need to learn.
Absolutely. They're all having trouble, though, that places aren't hiring new grads because of the lack of ability to work close with them.
Oh. Huh.
Oh, that can make sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was wondering about that.
Huh.
Yeah.
Shabbat Shalom, Paul. Shabbat Shalom, Michael.
I don't know.
Shabbos. Morning, everybody.
No, it feels nice, Den.
I was trying to fix you, but you're still red. Sorry.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I guess you have to go into settings on your camera, maybe. And I would know how to do that.
Nice.
Well, I was fooling with it, but then it
Yeah,
disrupts his picture and he didn't like it. So I
Yeah.
stopped.
Okay.
I stopped.
Hey, Audrey. Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom, Rabbi.
Too bad I wasn't a Republican. I had the right color.
We'll
Yeah, but
throw
that's
some.
confusing. You're red, but you're in front of blue.
Yeah, I'll throw some blue on you.
Shabbat Shalom, Arnie.
Shabbat Shalom.
I'm bipartisan, Rabbi.
Yeah, there you go. You
Yeah.
have some purple makeup, and then that's good. You know, combination of red and blue. Yeah. I'm going to talk a little bit this morning. there's just some about an exit poll the New York Times did of voters on Tuesday. Just the work, assuming Biden is the president-elect, the work that is cut out for him. Shabbat Shalom, David.
Shabbat Shalom.
But I have to say, if anybody could do it, it's Biden.
Yeah, you'd think all those years in the Senate, which is
Right.
all about,
Exactly. He knows these guys. He's worked with these guys.
Yeah.
He's made deals with these guys.
yeah.
And that's my 2 cents
Yeah, but those,
for what it's worth.
yeah, well, we'll see. Shabbat Shalom, Cantor.
Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi.
Sharon, you decided to take Shabbos outside this morning?
Yeah, so we have a split household. Some of us are quarantining inside.
Ooh.
And
Yeah.
so I'm just had it with the mask.
Yeah,
Zach was exposed to several patients with
Uh-oh.
coronavirus and came home a week early from his last clinical rotation. He's had one test and is clear, but we're a divided household till tomorrow's test results come back.
right, okay.
It actually sounds political. You're a divided household until the results come back.
Right.
So
Shabbat Shalom, Frida. Then turn up your volume, Frida, because looks like you're on, you're connected.
Hi, sweetheart.
Yeah, the mic, no. According to me, you are connected to audio. Now you're muted, now you're unmuted. You can't hear me?
Hey Jay, I can't get.
Yeah, I hear you now. Do you
I
hear
can't
me?
hear.
I can hear you,
I can't hear you, Jonah.
but I hear you fine.
Frida, reboot.
Try again.
I hear you
Reboot.
fine.
Oh, now I hear you. Sorry.
Okay, there you go. Good. Okay. Yeah, Frida's doing the Haftarah today. And Diane and Gershon's daughter, Tamar, all the way from Israel, will be reading Torah for us.
Oh, nice.
The anniversary of her bat mitzvah. Shabbat Shalom, Marvin. Shabbat Shalom, Charlotte. Oh, Charlotte's not connected yet. There she is. Shabbat Shalom, Charlotte.
You hit the same things all the time. I don't
Yeah,
know.
you got it. You got it. Shabbat Shalom, Ken.
Shabbat shalom.
Oh, there's-
Shabbat Shalom.
What time is it in Israel? It's 4:30 in Israel or 3:30 in Israel?
Oh,
Yeah, 4:30. She should be
4:30,
on soon.
7 hours.
Yeah, 7 hours.
Sudashli sheet almost.
Hey, there she is.
Yeah.
Hello.
Shabbat Shalom.
Tomorrow, there, Tom, eat some video. There you go.
I know. There's a reason why my video was turned off. There's like a whole. I'm the only one at Shul here right now.
Right. All right, folks, it's 9:30. So if everybody can mute themselves, except for Cantor, Adina, and myself. There we go. And Elizabeth is coming on. Okay, so it's good to see everyone in this transitional time as we wait official results pending. I'll have a few words to say about that a little bit later this morning. Don't worry, I won't be stirring up the pot, but just put some thoughts to it. We'll get started with our service with Shochenad in the Lev Shalem. We're on page 147. In the Sim Shalom, we're on page 105.
Shochenad marom v'kadosh shemo.
Shochenad marom v'kadosh shemo v'chaturanu tzadikim
V'chaturanu tzadikim baronai. לישרים נבע תהילה, בפי ישרים תתעלל, ובדברי צדיקים תתברך, ובלשון חסידים תתרומם, ובקרב קדושים תתקדש, ובמקהלות רבבות עמך בית ישראל ברינה. שכן חובת כל היצורים לפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, להודות, להלל, לשבח, לפאר, לרומם, להדר, לברך, להלל ולקלס על כל דברי שירות ותשבחות דוד בן ישי עבדך משיחך, ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו. תהילה ותפארת קדושה ומלכות, ברכות והודעות מעתה ועד עולם. ברוך אתה אדוני, אל מלך גדול בתשבחות, אל ההודעות אדוני נפלאות, הבוחר בשירי זמרה, מלך אל חי העולמים.
And if we can, we rise for Chatzi Kaddish.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמך רבה, ועלמא דברה קירותי, וימליך מלכותך בחייכון וביומכון, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יהי שמך מברך לעולם ולעלמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמך בקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמא, ואמרו אמן. ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, יוצר אור ובורא חושך, עושה שלום ובורא את הכל.
May be seated. We continue on page 150 in Lev Shalem, 107 in Sim Shalom.
אין קרקך ואין זולתך, אפס בלתך ומדומה לך. אין כערכך אדוני אלוהינו בעולם הזה, ואין זולתך מלכנו לחיי העולם הבא. אפס בלתך גואלנו לימות המשיח, ואין דומה לך מושיענו לתחיית המתים. אל אדון על כל המעשים, ברוך ומבורך בפי כל נשמה, גודלו וטובו מלא עולם, דעת ותבונה סובבים אותו, המתגאה אל חיות הקודש, ונדר בכבוד על המרכבה, זכות ומישור לפני כיסו, חסד ורחמים לפני כבודו, טובים מאורות שברא אלוהינו, יצרם בדעת, בבינה ובהשכל, כוח וגבורה נתן בהם, להיות מושלים בקרב תבל, מלאים זיו ומפיקים נוגה, נעזיבם בכל העולם, שמחים בצאתם וששים בבואם, עושים בימר רצון קונם, פאר וכבוד נותנים לשמו, צהלה ורינה לזכר מלכותו, קרא לשמש ויזרח אורה, והתקין צורת הלבנה, שבח נותנים לו כל צבא מרום, תפארת וגדולה, סרפים ואופנים וחיות הקודש, לאל אשר שבת מכל המעשים.
In Lev Shalom, we continue the top of 152 onto 153. In Sim Shalom, the top of 109 onto 110.
תברך הושיענו על שבח מעשה ידיך, ועל מאורהו שעשית יפארך הסלע. תברך צורנו מלכנו וגואלנו בורא קדושים. כולם אוהבים, כולם וכולם פותחים את פיהם בקדושה ובטהרה, בשירה ובזמרה, ומברכים ומשבחים ומפארים ומעריצים, ומקדישים וממליכים את שם האל המלך הגדול, הגיבור והנורא קדוש הוא. וכולם מקבלים עליהם עול מלכות שמיים זה מזה, ונותנים רשות זה לזה, להקדיש ליוצרם בנחת רוח, בשפה ברורה ובנימה קדושה, כולם כאחד עונים ואומרים ביראה, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוא כל הארץ כבודו. והאופנים וחיות הקודש ברעש גדול מתנסים, לעומת סרפים, לעומתם משבחים ואומרים, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. לאל ברוך נמותיתנו. המחדש בטובו בכל יום תמיד, מעשה בראשית כאמור, לעושה אורים גדולים, כי לעולם חסדו. אור חדש על ציון תאיר, אור חדש על ציון תאיר, אור חדש על ציון תאיר, אור חדש על ציון תאיר. ונזכה כולנו מהרה לאורו, ונזכה כולנו מהרה לאורו. ברוך אתה אדוני יוצר המאורות.
We're on 154 in Lev Shalem, 111 in Sim Shalom. We gather together our tzitzit in preparation for the Shema.
והאר עינינו בתורתך, ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך, ולאחד לבבינו לאהבה וליראה את שמך, ולא נבוש לעולם ועד, ולא נבוש לעולם ועד, כי בשם קודשך הגדול והנורא בטחנו, נגילה ונשמחה, נגילה ונשמחה בשועתך. והביאנו לשלום מארבע כנפות הארץ, ותוליכנו קוממיות, קוממיות לארצנו, כי אל פועל ישועת אתה, ובנו בחרת מכל עם ולשון, וקרבתנו לשמך הגדול, סלע באמת, להודות לך ולייחדך, ולייחדך באהבה. ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך.
Sounded very little. We continue the middle of page 156 in Lev Shalem, or the top of 113 in Sim Shalom.
ויאמר אדוני אל משה לאמור, דבר אל בני ישראל, ואמרת עליהם, ועשו להם ציצית על כנפי בגדיהם לדורותם, ונתנו על ציצית הכנף פתיל תכלת, והיה לכם לציצית, וראיתם אותו, וזכרתם את כל מצוות אדוני, ועשיתם אותם, ולא תטורו אחרי לבבכם, ואחרי עיניכם, אשר אתם זונים אחריהם, למען תזכרו, ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. דור ודור הוא קיים, ושמו קיים, וכיסאו נכון, ומלכותו ואמונתו לעד קיימת. אמת שאתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, מלכנו מלך אבותינו, גואלנו גואל אבותינו, יוצרנו צור ישועתנו, פודנו ומצילנו מעולם שמך, אין אלוהים זולתך, עזרת אבותינו אתה הוא מעולם. תהילות לאל עליון, ברוך הוא ומבורך, משה ומרים ובני ישראל, לכהנו שירה, בשמחה רבה, ואמרו כולם, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה. שירה חדשה שיבחו גאולים לשמך על שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד.
Rise if we can.
צור ישראל, קומה בעזרת ישראל, ופדך נאומך יהודה וישראל. גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
We start the Amida out loud, 159 in Lev Shalem, 115 in Sim Shalom.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor ve'Hanora, El Elyon, גומל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות, ומביא גואל לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ופוקד, ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם, ופוקד שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה. ונאמן אתה לחיות מתים, ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי המתים.
לך בעולם כשם שמקדישים שמי מרום ככתובים ואחר זה אל זה ויאמר.
נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ויאמר, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ כבודו.
ממש גדול די חזק משמיעים כל מנסים ומצרפים ומתם ברוך.
אז בקול רעש גדול, אדיר וחזק משמיעים קול, מתנשאים לעומת שרפים, לעומתם ברוך יאמרו, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו.
עמך מקים תתחיל עלינו וחיים ומחיים
ממקומך מלכנו תופיע, ותמלוך עלינו, כי מחכים אנחנו לך. מתי תמלוך בציון? בקרוב בימינו, לעולם ועד תשכון. תתגדל ותתחדש בתוך ירושלים עירך, לדור ודור ולנצח נצחים. ועינינו תראנה מלכותך, כדבר האמור בשירי עוזך. על ידי דוד משיח צדקך, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהיך ציון לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו למוש לעולם ועד, כי אל מלך גדול וקדוש אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
We continue silently in Lev Shalem 162 to 166 and Sim Shalom 117 to 120. Yismach Moshe As we conclude our private prayers, we continue with Sim Shalom 165 and Lev Shalem, the top of 120 in the prayer book, Sim Shalom.
Sim, sim, sim shalom, sim shalom tova uvracha v'olam, sim, sim, sim shalom tova uvracha, chen v'chesed v'rachamim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael amecha, barchenu avinu kulanu ke'echad Bior panecha, sim, sim, sim shalom, sim shalom tova uvracha v'olam, sim, sim, sim shalom tova uvracha, ki bior panecha natata lanu Adonai Eloheinu Torat Chaim ve'avat chesed u'tzedaka u'veracha ve'rachamim ve'chaim ve'shalom. Sim, sim, sim shalom, sim shalom tova uvracha ba'olam, sim, sim, sim shalom tova uveracha v'tov b'einecha levarech et amecha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שים, שים, שים שלום, שים שלום טובה וברכה בעולם. שים, שים, שים שלום טובה וברכה. ברוך אתה אדוני המברך את עמו ישראל בשלום.
Amen. We continue with Kaddish Shalem, the full Kaddish, 167 in Lev Shalem, 138 in Sim Shalom.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמך רבה,
Amen.
ועלמא דברה חירותך, וימליך מלכותך בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מפרח לעלם ולעלמי המיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמך דקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. תתקבל צלתן ואותן דכל ישראל קדם אבוהן דיבי שמיה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו
Amen. We turn back in the Siddur for the Psalm for Shabbat in Lev Shalem, page 112, in Sim Shalom, page 72. Hayom Yom Shabbat Kodesh.
היום יום שבת קודש שבו היו הלווים אומרים בבית המקדש מזמור שיר ליום שבת טוב לאבותינו. צדיק אתה לא יפרח ארץ בלבנון יזכה שתולים בבית אדוני. עוד ינובון בשיבה דשנים ורעננים יהיו להגיד כי אשר אדוני צורי ולא עוולת בו.
Mourner's Kaddish is found on page 121 in Lev Shalem or 82 in Sim Shalom. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
V'yalma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei. V'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael. V'agala v'zman kariv imru amen.
Amen.
Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam ol me'ol maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudesha berichu la'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlomo rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav v'yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. So we turn our attention now to the Chumash. Just one second here as I get situated with all the different pages. Yes. So in the Eitz Chaim, the portion this morning is Vayera, not just in the Eitz Chaim, but in any Chumash, the portion is Vayera. But in Eitz Chaim, the page is 99. In whatever edition you're using, you're looking for Vayera, you're looking for Genesis chapter 18, verse 1. I'll say the blessing for Torah study. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
So before I call on Tamar to read the selections for us this morning, just a little bit of one introductory note about this morning's portion, and that is that we learn a lot of Jewish ethical values from this morning's Torah portion. It is key to understanding and, in fact, the source for many of the ethical mitzvot is God from this portion. So from the very first word, Vayera elav Adonai be'elonei Mamre, God appeared to Abraham by the terebinths of Mamre. he was sitting at the entrance of the tent as the day grew hot. As I spoke about earlier in the week in the Torah study session, we have to understand the context. We have to remember that last week's portion ended with Abraham fulfilling the commandment to circumcise himself and circumcise all the male members of his household. And that at the point wasn't Isaac yet, but was Ishmael, who was 13 years old, and all the other men in the house. So that when God came to appear to Abraham, as Abraham was sitting at the entrance to his tent in the heat of the day, for the rabbis, it's clear that Abraham is still recuperating, because that's the very last thing we read about in last week's portion. And you have a haftarah that's in the way in the Chumash, but take that haftarah away, we understand that the end of chapter 17 is about circumcision, and chapter 18 starts right here with this. So for the rabbis, it's clear what's happening here happened immediately after. There could have been a time lag. There could have been months or years between the end of last week's portion and the beginning of this week's portion. But for the rabbis, it's not the case, unless the Torah explicitly says 5 months later or 2 years later. Then for the rabbis, it's clear that it happened right away. So if Abraham is recuperating and God is appearing to him, then for the rabbis, it's clear that God is performing for the very first time the mitzvah, the commandment to bikur cholim, to visit the sick. And we also understand from this portion when Abraham sees these 3 people approaching, which are by later in the story, we understand they're angels, and that Abraham runs to give them food, etc. We learn the commandment of hachnasat orchim, of hospitality, especially hospitality to strangers. And we also learn in the very end of the first Aliyah that when Sarah and Abraham hear the words of these angels saying that in a year's time Sarah is going to give birth, in verse 12 on page 101, Sarah laughed to herself, saying, "Now that I am withered, am I to have enjoyment with my husband so old?" So she's laughing, and she's laughing about her husband being old too. And then verse 13, the next sentence, "Then the Lord said to Abraham, why did Sarah laugh, saying, shall I in truth bear a child old as I am?" So God changes the words from verse 12 to verse 13. Sarah says, how can I and my husband who is so old? God tells Abraham what Sarah says, but changes the words and says that only Sarah is laughing about herself being so old. God doesn't tell Abraham that Sarah said that Abraham was old too. So for the rabbis, the most intriguing mitzvah of all is shalom bayit, peace in the household. That's an important mitzvah to try to maintain peace at home, to ensure that everybody gets along well in the household. And none other than God is willing to misspeak in order to promote the mitzvah of shalom bayit. And so just read the commentary below the line with an extended understanding of that mitzvah, how important it is, not necessarily to lie, but to tell a white lie, to maybe withhold a little bit of information for the sake of shalom bayit. For the rabbis, peace in the home is more important than absolutely telling the truth all the time. And so that gets into a gray area, because we all know that we want to tell the truth all the time. But telling the truth, even telling the truth, is not necessarily a black and white issue. And sometimes we want to feel that the choices that we make in life, the moral, ethical choices that we make in life, should be black and white, that we feel more confident knowing that there's a clear yes or no choice. It's clear for most of the time in life that the choice really lies in the gray area and between the black and white. And it's up to us to determine how much in the gray we go to be comfortable. And for the rabbis here to learn from God that going into the gray and saying that Sarah only was laughing about herself so that God wouldn't make Abraham feel bad about himself or be angry at Sarah for Sarah saying that Abraham is so old, instead of riling up emotions, that for that sake, Shalom Bayit is more important than telling the truth. So Tamar will start us off by chanting what is listed here as the first Aliyah. So pages 99 to 101, chapter 18, verses 1 to 14. Go ahead, Tamar.
Vayera elav Adonai belonei mamre vehu yoshev petach ha'ohel kechom hayom vayisa einav והנה שלושה אנשים ניצבים עליו וירץ לקראתם מפתח האוהל וישתחו ארצה. אמר אדוני, אם נא מצאתי חן בעיניך, אל נא תעבור מעבדך. ייקח נא מעט מים ורחצו רגליכם והישנו תחת העץ. וקרב הלחם וסדו לבכם אחר תבורו, כי על כן עברתם על עבדיכם, ויאמרו כן תעשה כאשר דיברת. וימהר אברהם אל שרה, ויאמר מהרי 3 שאים קמח סולת לושי וזיוגות, ולבקר רץ אברהם. ויקח ממקרח וטוב ויתן אל הנער וימהר לעשות אותו ויקח חמאה וחלב ובין הבקר אשר עשה ויתן לפניהם והוא עומד עליהם תחת העץ ויאכלו ויאמרו אליו ויסרה אשתך ויאמר הנה באוהל ויאמר שוב אשוב אליך כעת חיה והנה בן לשרה אשתך ושרה שומעת פתח האוהל והוא אחריו ואברהם ושרה זקנים באים בימים חיות לשרה אורך כנשים ותצחק שרה בקרבה לאמור אחרי ולא תהיה לי עדנה ואדוני זקן ויאמר אדוני למה זה צחקה שרה לאמור האף אמנם ילד ואני זקנתי היפלם אדוני דבר למועד אשוב אליך כעת חיה לשרה בן.
All right, Yasher Koach so far. From this point in the story, then the angels move on to Sodom and Gomorrah, cities that are towns that are on the shore of the Dead Sea, the southern shore of the Dead Sea, places that, according to the rabbis and other commentaries, are places of evil, but it's a place where Abraham and Sarah's nephew Lot and his family live. So what we find here is the Lot's relationship with the townspeople in Sodom and Gomorrah, and also God's intention to destroy the cities, and Abraham's argument with God about doing that. And there's that famous scene in which God informs Abraham of this impending destruction. And Abraham immediately says, what if there are 50 righteous people in that town? Is it still for their sake? Maybe you should save the town for the sake of the 50 righteous people. And God says, okay. And Abraham says, well, then like a true Middle Easterner, what about 45? If there are 45 people there, what about that? And God says, okay. What about 40? What about 30, 20, 10? Abraham stops at 10, and God says, even if there are 10 righteous people, I won't destroy the town. And still there are 10 people are not to be found. Another side note to this that is important for the rabbis to teach us about the mission of angels on earth and what to define what an angel is, because we see them in the Torah and later books of the Bible as well. That it's interesting that the rabbis learn from this portion that the purpose of an angel on earth is to complete one mission and one mission only. So careful readers of the Torah, like the rabbis were, find that at the beginning of this morning's portion, Abraham sees three people approaching, which are three angels. In chapter 19 on page 104, two angels go to Sodom and Gomorrah. Chapter 19, page 104, the two angels arrived in Sodom in the evening as Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. So what happened to the third one? So the rabbi said then that one of the angels, his job was to inform Abraham and Sarah of the impending birth. Once he did that, he left. So now there are only two angels, one to save Lot and his family, and the other one to inform about the impending destruction. So that's how the rabbis learned from this morning's portion, from just this careful reading, that there were three angels who came to Abraham and Sarah, and now two are heading on to Sodom and Gomorrah, that the purpose of an angel on earth is to perform one task and one task only. As I said on Wednesday in Torah study, if you want to learn more about angels and the role of angels in Jewish tradition and their place in Jewish tradition, you can just Google and find this very lengthy article that was in the Encyclopedia Judaica, which talks all about it. The rabbis, for some reason, spend a lot of time on angels, with all the names of angels and the role of angels in our lives. For some people, it might be, I'm not discounting the role of angels at all. For moderns, most people find the idea that there are angels performing God's task on earth as a little bit unusual or strange, like what are these heavenly creatures? Who becomes an angel? And the idea from Christian thought kind of gets melded into this as well. And certainly Jewish ideas of angels are very different than Christian ideas of angels, but they're in the Torah, and the rabbis have to deal with it because it's in the Torah. And I just wanted to highlight that and to spark a little bit of interest there. And so now Tamar is going to continue reading for us chapter 19, just the beginning of the fourth Aliyah, chapter 19, verses 21 to 29 in Eitz Chaim, or near the bottom of 107 onto 108. Go ahead.
ויאמר אליו, הנה נשאתי פניך גם לדבר הזה, לבלתי הפכי את העיר אשר דיברת. מהר הימלט שמה, כי לא אוכל לעשות דבר עד בואך שמה, על כן קרא שם העיר צוער. השמש יצא על הארץ ולוט בצוערה. ואדוני המטיר על סדום ועל עמורה גופרית באש מת אדוני מן השמיים. ויהפוך את הערים האל ואת כל הכיכר ואת כל יושבי הערים וצמח אדמה. ותבט אשתו מאחריו ותהי נציב מלך. וישכם אברהם בבוקר אל המקום אשר עמד שם את פני אדוני, וישקוף על פני סדום ועמורה ועל כל פני ארץ הכיכר, וירא והנה עלה קיטור הארץ כקיטור הכבשן.
So there's the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah and Lot's wife turning into a pillar of salt. Of course, if you take a tour of Israel and a tour guide is leading you in the southern reaches there of the Dead Sea, driving along the main road, the tour guide inevitably will point out a pillar of salt and say, that's Lot's wife. But of course, depending on the tour guide will depend on which pillar of salt they're pointing to. So we don't know, of course, which pillar of salt is Lot's wife. We continue in the portion there that Abraham and Sarah move on to escape a famine again into Gerar to seek food. So there's another story about Abraham and Sarah dealing with the king of Abimelech. And then chapter 21 is, and the end of the portion is familiar to us from the Torah readings on Rosh Hashanah. The first day of Rosh Hashanah Torah reading is chapter 21, in which God remembers Sarah. It's been a year now, and Sarah gives birth. There's one phrase here I just want to point out before Tamar reads the last portion for us. And here on page 113 in the fifth Aliyah, we have a poetic description of Sarah that in verse 7 on page 113, who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would suckle children? Okay, so she's only having one son. What is it that she's suckling children? So there's a midrash that not only was there a miracle of Sarah in old age at 90 years old, giving birth, conceiving, and then giving birth to a son, but that she was so blessed that she was able to nurse all babies in the land. And people came because of this miracle of such an elderly woman giving birth. People wanted to experience and be in her presence, and perhaps a bit of her could enter into their children so that they would be blessed too. And that's just from this, the phrasing here, that it's children, that she suckled children, banim, and not ben in the singular. That leaves for the rabbis this idea how much of a blessing Sarah was. That Sarah, it wasn't just a blessing to her own family, but a blessing to all around her. And then, of course, we have the famous story of Abraham and Isaac going up to Mount Moriah to fulfill that very last test from God, for Abraham to bring his son to the mountain, and where the angel stops his hand at the last minute. Tamar is going to read the end of the portion for us, beginning on page 119, verse 9, the very last line on page 119. So it's verse 9 of chapter 22, and she'll read to the end of the portion. Go ahead.
ויבואו אל המקום אשר אמר לו אלוהים, ויבן שם אברהם את המזבח, ויערוך את העצים, ויעקוד את יצחק בנו, וישם איתו על המזבח ממעל העצים. וישלח אברהם את ידו, ויקח את המאכלת לשחוט את בנו, ויקרא אליו מלאך אדוני מן השמיים, ויאמר אברהם אברהם, ויאמר הנני, ויאמר אל תשלח ידך לנער ואל תעש לו מאומה, כי אתה ידעתי, כי הרי אלוהים אתה ולא חסכת את בנך את יחידך ממני. וישא אברהם את עיניו, וירא והנה העיל אחר נאחז בסבך בקרניו. וילך אברהם ויקח את העיל, ויעלהו לעולה תחת בנו, ויקרא ההוא אדוני יראה, אשר יאמר היום בהר אדוני יראה. ויקרא מלאך אדוני אל אברהם שנית מן השמיים, ויאמר נשבעתי נאום אדוני, כי יען אשר עשית את הדבר הזה ולא חסכת את בנך יחידך. כי ברך אברכך והרבה צרך ככוכבי השמיים, וכחול אשר על שפת הים, וירש זרעך את שער אויביו, ויתברכו בזרעך כל גויי הארץ, עקב אשר שמעת בקולי. וישב אברהם אל נערה, ויקומו וילכו יחדיו אל באר שבע, וישב אברהם בבאר שבע. ויהי אחרי הדברים האלה, ויוגד לאברהם לאמור, הנה ילדה מלכה גם הוא בנים. לנחור אחיך, את עוץ בכורו ואת בוז אחיו, וקומיאל אבי ארם, וקשת ואת חזו, ואת פילדש ואת ידלף, ואת בתואל. ובתואל ילד רבקה שמונה אלה ילדה מלכה לנחור אחי אברהם. ופילג שמה ראומה, ותלד גם היא את טבח וגחם, ותחש ואת מחר.
Yasher Koach and Mazel Tov to Tamar, the anniversary of her bat mitzvah, reading Torah for us. It's great that Ayala is there. I think I heard the girls in the background, and and Naomi is on too, and of course Diane and Gershon. So Mazel Tov everyone, and thanks so much. It's great, 6,000 miles away that you can be part of the service. As you have been before, and to read Torah for us. That's wonderful. So I want to continue now. Before we get to the Haftarah, I want to continue with the Misha Berach, the prayer for those who are ill. And I have a list of names, and unmute yourselves if you want to add a name to the list, and I'll call on you. I'll see that, hopefully I'll see that you're unmuted, and that will mean that I will call on you to add the name or names. It's the prayer. We can find the prayer on page 144 in Sim Shalom on the bottom, or on page 173 in Lev Shalem. Mishaberach Avateinu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov v'Imotenu Sarah Rivka Rachel Leah v'Yevarech v'Yerpei et HaCholim Shmuel ben Karet Peninu bar Chana Leah Simet Tzivia bat Zelda Tzipachana bat Golda Ruth bat Sarah Nes Gildor ben Shoshana Shlomo ben Golda Tzivia Sarah bat Simaleah Simcha Natan Berisachana Avia Sarah bat Cyril Issa Rachel Penina bat Ariella Tzipor Sheva bat Rezel Chaim ben Rachel Leah Gavriel ben Batya, Yehuda ben Leah, Fruma Dereda bat Zisha, Malka Chava bat Tzivia Sarah, Batya bat Rivka, Loya Hyason, Howard Salter, Shira Elisheva bat Sarah, Yosef Shlomo ben Batya, Maurice Mizrahi, Rachel Fruma bat Itarezel, Devorah Sheshel bat Chaya Rachel, Ephraim ben Golda. So I'm going according to the order of my screen. Michael Gross.
Miriam Sarah bat Brina, Sarah Miriam bat Raphael, David ben Shena, and Chernalea bat Chaya Sarah.
Howie.
Heather Stein.
Audrey. Just a second. I'm going according to my Audrey.
Ed Tolansky and Joe Ellen Muslim.
David Polinsky.
Chena bat Hannah, Herman Cohen.
Cantor Adina.
Gretchen Marianne Klein, Livia bat Rachel, Reuven Asher ben Leah, Rachel bat Leah, Brett Fishberg, Gary Fishberg.
Arnie.
Avraham ben Zelda.
Frida, do you have a name? Or are you just ready for that? Yeah.
Gila bat Chaya and Cynthia Scott.
Okay. Charlotte Petoskey.
Kayla bat Hannah, Irene Heckler, Ricky Weiser, Michael Weiser, Donna Cohen, Beverly Tillis, Jay Manius, Yehuda bat Yitzchak, and Avram ben Moshe.
Marv Kruger.
Rob Yaakov Zvi ben Liba and Tony Bloor.
Elizabeth.
Joyce Cates, Bunny Grossinger, and Francie Mess.
Dan Martyr.
Judy Langto.
Marlene.
Chaim Reuven ben Bela.
Barbara.
Shlomo ben Goldalea, Bathsheba bat Rivka Gitta, and David Jacobson.
And Rita.
Okay, Sarah bat Freda bat Rivka,
Sila bat Sipora, Kiva ben Yehudita, Ram ben Gita, Feke bat Pesel, Brian Freda bat Mildred, Sylvia bat Sarah.
And Danny Ben.
Adrian Persson and Alvin Ben.
And I think that is all for people. Okay. וכל החולים בקהילתנו הקדוש ברוך הוא ימלא רחמים עליהם, להחזיקם לרבותם ישלח להם מהרה רפואה שלמה מן השמיים, רפואת הנפש ורפואת הגוף בתוך שאר החולים וחזק ידידי העוסקים בצורכיהם, שבת ימי לזוק ורפואה קרובה לבוא, אשר בגלל בזמן קריב ונאמר אמן. Instead of singing the Debbie Friedman song, I'm going to try to play this video that I tried to play last week. Thanks to my neighbor and friend Margie for sending me the link on YouTube. So it should work now. This video that I wanted to play last week is a beautiful video from the Jewish Federations. They sponsor trips for adults and programs for adults in Israel, for North Americans to do in Israel. And they compiled this video of participants in the Masa program singing this beautiful rendition of a combination of Elna, Rafana La, to please God heal her, and Hoshienu, save us, in this very uplifting, beautiful video, which I think is good for the time that we're living in, especially, and for any time. So I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully this will work. 1 second, just optimizing and share, and here, and play.
Rifa'enu Adonai v'nei Rafeh, Hoshienu v'niver She'ah, El karov l'chol korov, ach karov l'reah rishon. We pray for healing of the body. We pray for healing of the soul, for strength of flesh and mind and spirit. We pray to once again be whole. Elna Rifana. Oh, please heal us now. הושיע את עמך וברך את נחלתך ורעים ונשא מלכה. מי שברך אבותינו, מי שברך אמותינו, אנא אדוני הושיענה. We pray for healing of our people. We pray for healing of the land and peace for every race and nation, every child, every woman, every land. Elna Rifana.
So I hope you agree that that was a beautiful song, not just for healing of those we prayed for, but healing of our country, healing for all. And so we will continue with the Haftarah now. And yeah, so we continue with the Haftarah. Frida Krosnick is going to be chanting the Haftarah for us. It begins on page 124 in Eitz Chaim. It's this story of from stories about the prophets Elijah and Elisha, especially the prophet Elisha in early Israelite history. The story from the second book of Kings. Elisha is this prophet who is known to have performed a lot of miracles. And this is the quintessential miracle that he performed, the story of a barren woman, many stories like that, not only in the Torah, but in the Bible itself, who are miraculously cured of infertility and have a child. And then this child falls sick and looks like that not only has the child collapsed, but perhaps has died. Elisha is called and performs what looks like CPR because he lies on top of this child. The child sneezes and coughs 7 times and is brought back to life and is saved. Now, this story is here because there is a tradition that Isaac was killed on Mount Moriah by Abraham, and the miracle was that he was brought back to life. So there is that tradition within rabbinic literature that Abraham actually did kill his son, and God intervened and brought Isaac back to life. So because of that, perhaps of that rabbinic tradition, this is the story that was chosen for the Haftarah this morning. So the Haftarah is page 124 in the Chumash. Blessings before and after the Haftarah in Lev Shalem, page 175, in Sim Shalom, 146 and 147. Go ahead, Frida.
Okay, can I first say Yasher Koach to Tamar? It's great to see her in Israel. And it's going to be a tough act to follow.
No, don't put it that way. It's fine. Tamar did her thing, you're doing your thing.
Okay, here we go. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nviim tovim v'ratzah b'divreihem hanemarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'torah u'Moshe avdo u'Yisrael amo u'v'nviei ha'emet v'tzedek. V'isha achat min shei b'nei hanavim tzaka el Elisha lemor avdecha ishi met ve'ata yadata ki avdecha haya yareh es Adonai ve'hanasheh v'kahat et shnei yiladai lo la'avadim vayomer eleha Elisha ma'a eselach hagidi li ma yesh lach b'bayit v'tomer en l'shivchatcha kol b'bayit ki im asuch shamen vayomer lechi shalilach kelim min hachutz me'et kol shechenayich kelim rekim al tam'iti uvot v'sagar tadelet b'adeich uvad banayich vayatzat al kol hakelim ha'hele v'hamalei tasi v'telech me'ito v'tiskor hadelet v'ada uva'ad baneha hem magishim aleha v'hi motzaket. Vayehi kimlot hakelim, vatomer el bina, hagisha elai od keli, vayomer eleha ein od keli, vayamod hashamen, vatavo, vataged leish Elohim, vayomer L'chi michri et hashemen, v'shami et nishyech, v'atu v'naich tichi banotar. Vayehi hayom, vayavor Elisha, vayavor Elisha el Shunem, v'sham isha gdola, v'tachazek bo le'echol lachem, vayehi midei avro, yasur shama le'echol lachem. Vatomer Elisha, hinena yadati, ki ish Elohim kadosh hu, over aleinu tamid. Naasena al yad kir ktana, v'nasim lo sham, mita v'shulchan v'kisei umnorah, v'haya v'vo aleinu yasur shama. Vayehi hayom, vayavo shama, vayasar el haliyah, vayishkav shama. Vayomer el Gehazi Nero, Kira l'shunamit hazot, Vayikra la, v'ta'amod lefanav, Vayomer lo, Emarna eleha, Hine charadat eleinu, et kol hacharadat hazot, ma lasot lach, hayesh ledaver lach, el hamelech, o el sar hatzava, vatomer, betoch ami anochi yoshavet. Vayomer umelasot la, Vayomer Gehazi aval ben en lavisha zaken, Vayomer kra la, Vaikra la, Vatamod bapatach. Vayomar lemoed hazeh ke'et chaya, at choveket ben, vatomer al Adoni ish Elohim, al tachazev vashifchatecha, v'ta'ar haisha vateled ben, lemoed hazeh ke'et chaya, asher dibar eleha Elisha, vayigdal hayeled, vayehi hayom, vayetze el aviv el hakotzrim, vayomer el aviv roshi roshi, vayomer el hanar sa'ehu el imo, vayish sa'ehu, vayivayehu el imo, v'yashev el bircheha ad hatzaharayim vayamut, v'ta'al v'tashkivehu amatat ish ha'elohim, v'tiskor be'ado v'tetze, v'tikra Elisha v'tomer, shalchana li echat min hana'arim, ve'echat ha'tonot ve'arutza, ad ish Elohim ve'ashuva, Vayomer Madua Atolechet Elav Hayom Lo Chodesh Velo Shabbat Vatomer Shalom Vatachabesh Ha'aton Vatamor Al Nahara Nahag Valech Al Titzar Li Lirkov Ki Im Amarti Lach Vatelech Vatavo El Ish HaElohim El Har HaKarmel Vayehi Kirat Isha Elohim Oto Mineged Vayomer El Gechazi Naro Hine Hashunamit Halaz Ata Rutzna Likrata Vemor La Hashalom Lach Hashalom Lishech Hashalom Layaled Vatomer Shalom Vitavo El Ish Elohim El Hahar Vitachazek Biraglav Vayigesh Gechazi Lehadva Vayomer Ish Elohim Harpela Kinafsha Marala Vadonai Ha'eli Mimeni Below Hagid Li Vatomer Hasha'alti Ben Me'et Adoni Halo Amarti Lo Tashle Oti Vayomer Lagechazi Hager Limatneach Vekach Mishanti Beadecha Vilech Kinimtsa Ish Velo Tivarcheni Vichi Yevarechecha Ish Lo Ta'anenu Bisamat Mishanti Alpnei Hana'ar Vatomer Em Hana'ar Chai Adonai V'chai Nafshecha Im Ezvecha Vayakam Vayelech Achareha V'nechazi Avar Lifnehem Vayasam Et Hamishenet Al Pnei Hana'ar Ve'en Kol Ve'en Kashev Vayashav Likrato Vayagid Lo Lemor Lo Hekitz Hana'ar Vayavo Elisha Ha'abaita V'hine Hana'ar Meit Mushkav Al Mitato Vayavo Vayiskar Hadelet V'ad Shtehem Vayitpalel El Adonai Vayal Vayishkav Al Hayeled Vayasem Piv al piv Ve'enav al enav Ve'kapav al kapav Vayigahar elav Vayacham basar hayaled V'yashav v'elech babayit echad hena v'echad hena v'ya'al binhar alav v'yizarer hana'ar ad she'eva pa'amim v'yivkach hana'ar et einav v'yikra el gechazi v'yomer kera El Shunami Tazot Vaikreha Vatavo Elav Vayomer Si Banech Vatavo Vitipol Al Raglav Vitishacho Arza Vitisad Bana Vatetse Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam
צור כל הלומים, צדיק בכל הדורות, אל הנאמן, האומר ועושה, המדבר מקיים, שכל דבריו אמת וצדק. נאמן אתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו, ונאמנים דבריך, ודבר אחד מדבריך, אחור לא ישוב ריקם, כי אל מלך נאמן ורחמן אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני, ולנאמן בכל דבריו. רחם על ציון כי היא בית חיינו, ועלובות נפש תושיע במהרה בימינו. ברוך אתה אדוני, משמח ציון בבניה. שמחנו אדוני אלוהינו ואליהו הנביא עבדך, ובמלכות בית דוד משיחך, במהרה יבוא ויגל ליבנו, על כיסא לא ישב זר, ולא ינחלו עוד אחרים את כבודו, כי בשם קודשך נשבעת לו, שלא יכבד נרו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן דוד. על התורה ועל העבודה ועל הנביאים, ועל יום השבת הזה שנתת לנו, אדוני אלוהינו, לקדושה ומנוחה, לכבוד ולתפארת. על הכל, אדוני אלוהינו, אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך. יסברך שמך בפי כל חי, תמיד לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, מקדש השבת.
Amen. Wish a yasher koach to Frida for chanting the Haftarah for us this morning. Quite a lengthy Haftarah, and thank you very much, Frida. And we continue in the service. I want to first share the prayer for those who serve the community on page 176 in Lev Shalem or 148 in Sim Shalom. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless this entire congregation together with all other holy congregations, they, their families, and all that is theirs, along with those who devote themselves to establish synagogues for prayer, as well as those who enter them to pray, and those who provide for their maintenance, wine for Kiddush and Havdalah, food for guests, bread for the hungry, tzedakah for the poor, and shelter for the homeless, and all who faithfully devote themselves to the needs of this community and the land of Israel. May the Holy One reward them, remove sickness from them, heal them, and forgive their sins. May God bless them by making all their worthy endeavors prosper, as well as those of the entire people Israel, their brothers and sisters. And let us say, Amen. Before we continue with the prayer for our country, I wanted to just share a few words this morning by way of a Davar Torah about the time that we are living in, and this uncertain time as the votes are still being counted down to the very last one. In the discussion between God and Abraham about the impending destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, Abraham uses a phrase that becomes a rallying cry for people in every generation since. He says to God in a chutzpahdik kind of way, Hashofet kol haaretz lo ya'aseh mishpat, the judge of all the earth shouldn't do justice or act justly. And why is it, Abraham is saying by asking this question, would God see that it is just to destroy the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah? Sure, they are inherently evil, but always when there is an evil community, there are individuals in that community that are good. Just look at Noah in the time of the flood. Noah was one person that was worthy of being saved instead of God destroying the whole earth. So how is it Abraham is daring to ask God and question God? How is it that the supreme judge of all the earth should not act in an appropriately just way, that God of all beings, as the supreme being, can act in a nuanced way that would be just for everyone. What is inherent in this statement is how we understand how we as human beings are supposed to act. And that for the rabbis, it is clear that we are supposed to act as if we are imitating God. And that just, the rabbis say, just as God is compassionate, we too should be compassionate. Just as God is merciful, so too should we be merciful. Just as God is just, so we should act justly. And so we look to God for how we are supposed to act. And we kind of project the values that we hold dear and that we find significant. We project those onto God, and they get projected back to us, so that we are constantly reinforced with the message that we are supposed to act justly. The challenge, of course, is to how to be judge for all the earth, how to act justly for everyone, how to have a message that will unite people, how to act in a way that will bring people together for common cause and for a common purpose. And so what struck me this week out of all the articles, the endless articles in the newspaper, was this exit poll that the New York Times conducted on Tuesday. And it is quite telling about the task ahead for the next president if their goal is to unite the country, how potentially challenging and nearly impossible that could be. So the New York Times, of all the questions that were asked of people after they voted, there was this: which one of these 5 issues mattered most in deciding how you voted for president? Okay, so of all the questions that were asked, this is one of the questions. As people walking out of the polling booth, what was in your mind as you were voting? Okay, so just on the spot, were any of these on your mind? And so the New York Times came up with these 5 potentially that could be on people's minds: racial inequality, the coronavirus pandemic, the economy, crime and safety, and healthcare policy. So those are the 5 issues. There could have been many more issues, different issues. Those are the 5 that they came up with. So in general, the number one issue, number one being 35%, being the most of all the responses, was the economy. And number 2 was racial inequality at 20%. Okay, so that's of all the respondents, no matter who they voted for. But then if they broke it down, and this is the key to what I find starkly amazing. If they broke it down, they asked who you voted for, and then asked this question. So those who claim to say they voted for President Trump, 8% of them found racial inequality to be on their radar. Only 8%. Those who voted for Biden, 91% of them said racial inequality was number one. That to me, and for those who voted for Trump, the number one issue was the economy at 82%. For Biden voters, 91% of them said racial inequality was number one, with a close second at 82%, the coronavirus pandemic. Those were the 2 top issues that Biden voters said. The 2 top issues for Trump voters was the economy and crime and safety. So I find it quite telling that what's on the mind of someone who voted for Joe Biden was racial inequality. On the mind of someone who voted for President Trump was the economy. And for the racial inequality, the Trump voter, according to this exit poll, racial inequality was not on their radar. Only 8% of them said that that was number one. So I think that it's quite clear from this, and of course the statisticians can read this exit poll a lot better than I just did, but I think it's clear from the way it's presented that those who voted for different reasons, and that it seems from this exit poll that those different reasons are very, very different. And the goal of the President of the United States is to try to unify the country around common cause. And if one issue is cause for only one segment of the country, and just look at the electoral map, and you can see how divided the country is. Just look at any state. For instance, when I went to sleep on Tuesday night at 10:30, 11 o'clock, Virginia was red. And then when I woke up, it was blue. But every state has these pockets, large swaths of red and little pockets of blue. But the little pockets have a lot of people living there. So just within each state, within our country, we are divided based on not only who we vote for, but apparently, according to this exit poll, about what's on our radar, what's number one in our minds as important values. And so then when we want to act justly, not just with defining the term justice in a very narrow way about law, but just acting in an appropriate way according to the values that we hold dear, according to the priorities of values that we have in our life, we find that it's going to be quite the challenge to bring the country together, to be united around common cause, to be united around common values. And that we only hope and pray that whoever the next president will be, that they will begin the hard work of bringing people together, to trying to see that we are in this together as a country, to try to rise up in terms of values, to kind of rise up with civic pride, to rise up to say that we are committed to social justice, to racial justice, to raising all of us up. And as we all get raised up, and we look for the safety and health of everyone in the country, then everything else will follow through. And we only hope and pray that that will be the case. The prayer for our country is on page 177 in Lev Shalem, 148 in Sim Shalom. Our God and God of our ancestors, with mercy accept our prayer on behalf of our country and its government. Pour out your blessing upon this land, upon its inhabitants, upon its leaders, its judges, officers, and officials who faithfully devote themselves to the needs of the public. Help them understand the rules of justice you have decreed, so that peace and security, happiness and freedom will never depart from our land. Adonai, God whose spirit is in all creatures, we pray that your spirit be awakened within all the inhabitants of our land. Uproot from our hearts hatred and malice, jealousy and strife. Plant love and companionship, peace and friendship among the many peoples and faiths who dwell in our nation. Grant us the knowledge to judge justly, the wisdom to act with compassion, and the understanding and courage to root out poverty from our land. May it be your will that our land be a blessing to all who dwell on earth, and may you cause all peoples to dwell in friendship and freedom. Speedily fulfill the vision of your prophets. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore, for all of them, from the least of them to the greatest, shall know me. And let us say, Amen. Avinu, Avinu, Sheba Shamayim, Tzur Yisrael v'goalo. Avinu, Avinu, Sheba Shamayim, Tzur Yisrael v'goalo. Barechet Medinat Yisrael, Reshit Smichat Geulatenu, Hagen Aleha be'evrat chastecha ufros aleha sukat shlomecha, Ushlach orcha v'amitcha l'rasheha sareha v'yoatzeha, v'takneim be'etzah tova milofanecha. Chazek et yedei meginei eretz kodshenu, v'hanchilem Eloheinu Yeshua, v'ateret nitzachon ta'atreim, v'natata shalom ba'aretz v'simchat olam liyoshveha, v'nomar Amen. We continue with Ashrei 181 and Lev Shalem 151 and Sim Shalom.
אשרי יושבי ביתך עוד יהללוך סלה.
אשרי העם שככה לו, אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו.
תהילה לדוד, ארוממך אלוהי המלך, ואברך שמך לעולם ועד.
בכל יום אברכך, ויהללה שמך לעולם ועד.
גדול אדוני ומהולל מאוד, ולגדולתו אין חקר.
דור לדור ישבח מעשיך, גבורותיך יגידו.
הדר כבוד הודיך, ודברי נפלאותיך עשיך.
נזוז נורותיך יאמרו, גדולתך אספרנה.
זכר רב טובך יביעו, וצדקתך ירננו.
אדון ורחום אדוני, ערך אפיים וגדל חסד.
טוב אדוני לכל, ורחמיו על כל מעשיו.
יודוך אדוני כל מעשיך, וחסידיך יברכוך.
כבוד מלכותך יאמרו, וגבורתך ידברו.
להודיע לבני אדם גבורותיו, וכבוד הדר מלכותו.
מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור.
סומך אדוני לכל הנופלים, וזוקף לכל הכפופים.
עיני כל אליך יסברו, ואתה נותן להם את אוכלם בעתו.
פותח את ידיך, ומשפיע לכל רצון.
צדיק אדוני בכל דרכיו, וחסיד בכל מעשיו.
קרוב אדוני לכל קרב, לכל אשר יקראוהו באמת.
רצון יראיו יעשה, ואת שבתם ישמע ויושיעם.
אומר אדוני הכל אוהבה, ואת כל הרשעים ישמיד.
תהילת אדוני ידבר פי, ויברך כל בשר שם קודשו לעולם ועד. ואנחנו נברך יח, מעתה ועד עולם, הללויה.
If we can, we rise for Chatzi Kaddish, page 184 in Lev Shalem, 155 in Sim Shalom, and then following that, we start the Amida out loud.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמך רבה, ועל מה דברה קירותך, וימליך מלכותך בחייכון וביומכון, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן.
יהי שמי רבה מבורך,
לעולם ולעלמי המיה, יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמך דקודשה.
ברכו.
אלא מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמה, ואמרו אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני, אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, אלוהי אברהם, אלוהי יצחק, ואלוהי יעקב, אלוהי שרה, אלוהי רבקה, אלוהי רחל, ואלוהי לאה, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות, ומביא גואל לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ופוקד, ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ופוקד שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה מתים אתה, רב להושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מחכה חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומידה מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה. ונאמן אתה להחיות מתי, ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים. נריצך ונקדישך כסוד שיח שרפי קודש, המקדישים שמך בקודש, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ויאמר, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך הארץ כבודו. כבודו מלא עולם, משרתיו שואלים זה לזה, איה מקום כבודו לאומתם ברוך יאמרו, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. ממקומו הוא יפן ברחמים, ויחון עם המייחדים שמו ערב ובוקר, בכל יום תמיד, פעמיים באהבה שמע אומרים, שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד. הוא אלוהינו אבינו, הוא מלכנו מושיענו, והוא ישמיענו ברחמיו שנית לעיני כל חי, להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם. ובדברי קודשך כתוב לאמור, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהיך ציון לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד, כי אל מלך גדול וקדוש אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
We continue silently in Lev Shalem 188 to 192, in Sim Shalom 158 to 161. As we conclude our private prayers, we continue with Sim Shalom in the Sidur Sim Shalom, page 161, the top of the page, in Lev Shalem 191.
שים שלום בעולם, טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים ורחמים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל ישראל עמך. ברכנו אבינו כולנו כאחד באור פניך. כי באור פניך נתת לנו, אדוני אלוהינו, תורת חיים ואהבת חסד, אהבת חסד, וצדקה וברכה ורחמים וחיים ושלום. שים שלום בעולם, טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים ורחמים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל ישראל עמך. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שים שלום בעולם, טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים ורחמים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל ישראל עמך. ברוך אתה אדוני המברך את עמו ישראל בשלום.
Amen. Before we continue with the full Kaddish, just want to make sure Elizabeth is going to be doing Kiddush for us, and just make sure that's in a little bit. Just make sure she has a cup of grape juice or wine with her. Excellent. Very good. We continue page 203 in Lev Shalem, 181 in Sim Shalom.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמך רבה.
Amen.
ועלמא דברה קירותך, וימליך מלכותך בחיי חון וביומכון, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יהי שמך רב מברך, לעולם יהיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמך דקודשה לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. תתקבל צלותינו ובאותינו דכל ישראל קדם אבוהון דיבי שמיה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. Ein kelohenu, ein kadonenu, ein kemalkenu, ein kemoshienu, michelohenu, michadonenu, michemalkenu, michemoshienu, nodel Elohenu, nodel Adonenu, nodel Malkenu, nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu, Atahu Shiktiru Avotenu, Lefanecha et Ketoret Asamim, Yalla la 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 la, yalla la 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 la, yalla la 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 la, yalla la 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 la. Amar Rabbi Elazar, Amar Rabbi Chanina, Talmidei Chachamim Baruch Shalom Shene'emar. Adonai עוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינת עוזו, ושכינת עוזו בגובה מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום, וידעת היום, והשבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ, ועל הארץ מתחת, אין עוד, אין עוד.
אוקיי, נקבל לך אלוהינו,
ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו, ושמו, ושמו אחד.
I'll recite now the El Male, the memorial prayer for all those observing Yartzeit today and the coming week. El Male Rachamim, Shochin Bamromim, Ametzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Ashchina, B'ma'alo Kedoshim Atorim, Kezoha Harakia Masirim, Lenishmot, Mindelmania, Bat Yitzchak Zev, Vibrancha, Pauline Bokenik, Marjorie Feldman, Eleanor Naklis Camero, Leah Razel, Bat Alter Menachem Nachum, Shirley Kashlansky, Shane Hinda, Bat Reb Yosef Leib, Joseph Cole, Anshul Lieberman, Bernard Cooper, Ida Gritz, Chaya Devar Bat Reb Alter, Israel Resnick, Manuel Wyman, Mendel Bereb Zev, Ann Rubin, Sarah Stiller, Sonia Taylor, Sarah Devara Bat Yisrael Varachel, Gil Beiser, Ella Cohn, Ita Bat Zev, Bel Reich, Bluma Bat Yehoshua, Ernst Samuels, Louis Wostein, Levi Yitzhak Bereb Moshe, Minna Feld, Frank Friedson, Ephraim Le Bereb Chana Shimon, Bernard Goldstein, Gertrude Rosen, Benjamin Shapiro, Ralph Shapiro, Raphael Ben Chaim Eliezer Vabela, Anita Weiner, Martin Reinak, Mordechai Bereb Avraham, Jack Rosensky, Yaakov Bereb Shmuel Leib, Louis Shapiro, Chaim Eliezer Ben Raphael, Burton Katz, Israel Kramer, Yisrael Ben Aharon Leib, Anna Leah Solomon, Chanaleah Bat Reb Chaim David, and Max Yurovsky, Michael Ben Yitzchak, Shehalchu L'Olamam, Began Eden Te Menuchatam, Anabal Harachamim, Hasterim B'Seter Knafecha L'Olamim, Utzur B'Tzur Chaim and Nishmotehem, Adonai Hu Nachalatam, V'yanuchu B'Shalom Al Mishkavotehem, V'nomar Amen. All those observing Yartzeit are saying Kaddish. Mourner's Kaddish is found on page 207 in Lev Shalem or 184 in Sim Shalom. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayachon v'yomechon u'v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, b'agalav izman kariv imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olamo me'olmaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpar v'yitromam v'yitnasei v'yithadar v'yitale v'yitalal shemei dekudesha berichu Eila min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata da'amiran v'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shloma rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom v'imrumav v'yaseh shalom Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Before we conclude with Adon Olam, just a couple quick announcements. This evening, we're doing something a little bit different order. We're going to do Havdalah first and then the evening service for an opportunity to kind of have a sensory experience of Havdalah. I'll explain that this evening, but Shabbos is over between 20 of and a quarter to 6. And so at 5:45, we'll get on for Havdalah, and I'll explain, Babette and I will explain how that's going to work. So we'll do Havdalah first, and then those who wish can stay on for the evening service as usual, where we'll have the opportunity to say Kaddish as well. Tomorrow we have the full slate of adult education, after the morning minyan at 8:45. And I wanted to highlight a couple of things. First, this week, we are one of the co-sponsors for the JTS. It's an initiative of the Rabbinical Assembly, United Synagogue of Conservative Judaism, the Jewish Theological Seminary, and the Ziegler School of Rabbinic Studies in Los Angeles, a program called Scholar Stream. 4 different scholars from the Jewish Theological Seminary teaching about different topics on 4 Tuesdays, the first one coming up this coming Tuesday. Registration is required, but because our shul is a co-sponsor of this, it's free for anyone who registers as long as you put in the correct promotion code or the coupon code. So I have that information on the email. It's on the Shabbat sheet as well on the back side of it. But David Fishman, Dr. David Fishman is opening the series, How Religious Pre-Holocaust Eastern European Jewry Actually Was or Wasn't. Interesting historical lesson about the nature of the Jewish community in pre-World War II Europe. And so I highly recommend this series. All 4 scholars are excellent, and it should be quite fascinating. Also, what you'll find on the Shabbat sheet, what I had in an email as well, is that the Tuesday that there isn't a lecture is the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. We usually in the community have an interfaith Thanksgiving service. That's not happening this year. We're going to do our own homegrown Thanksgiving service based on the talent that was exhibited on the high holidays of readings that people shared beautifully. I thought we could have our own Thanksgiving service as well on the same premise, not just people composing their own prayers, but perhaps you have talent playing a musical instrument and a piece that would be appropriate for the Thanksgiving season, or perhaps you have talent singing and would like to share a song based on the theme of the Thanksgiving season. Fill out the Google form that I had sent out and let me know how and if you would like to participate, and so that we can create a Thanksgiving service together. Everything else in the Shabbat sheet, other programs coming up, Sisterhood Rosh Chodesh Group, the Makers and Bakers, etc. It's all there. And we conclude with Adon Olam, page 211 in Lev Shalem, 187 in Sim Shalom.
Adon Olam asher malach b'terem kol yitzir nivra leit nasa v'chefzo kol azai melech shemo nikra v'yacharei kichlot hakol levado yimloch nora vehu haya vehu hove vehu yeh vetifara vehu echad ve'en sheni le'amshilo le'achbira veli reshit veli tachlit velo ha'oz ve'hamisra vehu eli ve'chai goali ve'tzur chevli be'etzara ve'hu nisi umanos li menat kosi ve'yom ekra ve'yado afkid ruchi ve'et ishal ve'yayira ve'im ruchi geviati Adonai li ve'lo ira.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We want to wish a Yasher Koach to Cantor Adina for leading us beautifully this morning, to Frida for chanting the Haftarah, to Tamar for chanting Torah for us, and to Stacy Lynch for being our Zoom co-host. We'll conclude with Kiddush, page 77, Lev Shalem, 315 in Sim Shalom. Elizabeth asked to do Kiddush because we've been saying the Misha Berach for her. She's been going through a long illness. She's, thank God, doing very well. And in gratitude, she wanted to recite Kiddush. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael t'Shabbat la'asar Shabbat l'dorotam brit olam b'nei uvein b'nei Yisrael tili olam ki sheshet yamim asad Adonai t'shamayim v'et haaretz uvayom hashvi Shabbat vayinafash. Zachor yom HaShabbat l'kodsho sheshet yamim tavod v'asida kol melachtecha v'yom hashvi Shabbat l'Adonai Elohecha lo taseh kol melacha ata v'imcha v'itecha avdecha v'amatcha v'hemdecha v'gercha shebisharecha ki shesh yamim asad Adonai t'shamayim v'et haaretz et hayam v'kol asher bam v'yanach b'yom hashvi'i al kein berach Adonai et yom HaShabbat v'yekadshehu savri. Go ahead, Elizabeth. Baruch.
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen.
Amen. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shalom.
Shabbat.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Biden has
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Nice to see everybody.
Nice
to see everybody too.
The election.
Shalom.
So just want to interrupt for a second. Just want to interrupt for a second. Frida put something in the chat.
Yes.
What's the update to the election results?
It's over. It's done. Elected.
Pennsylvania.
So what I have on my phone is, sorry, I know it's Shabbat, but Biden 284 electoral votes, Trump is 214.
So Biden has Arizona and Pennsylvania. Then I guess that's
He's
what
got Arizona, yes, Pennsylvania, exactly. And I did the math. And if I did the math correctly,
no, that's right.
Trump were to
Arizona,
do
some outlets had him.
that's it.
Yeah, some outlets had him with Arizona during the week, so they.
Yay.
Okay, thank God the election is over, and without any political comment, that's now the hard work.
Not the election, it's the.
Yeah, but the litigation.
Yeah. Now the hard work about this transition time.
All right, it's over.
Thank you. Good Shabbos.
Yes, you hear Trump wailing in the White House.
No. Let's not talk about that. But yeah, there's work ahead of uniting the country. There's
And
work
healing.
ahead to follow what President-elect Biden has been saying: to stay calm, to count the votes, and to work together to get back the civic values that America holds dear.
You do know that it's because of the wonderful Torah and Haftorah chanting that things moved along toward the end. That's it.
Vibes from Israel, making Pennsylvania announce. Yes.
And wonderful about Elizabeth.
Looks like the election is over. Biden
Yay,
won.
Elizabeth.
Yeah, that's what we were saying. Yes.
And hopefully Georgia too. Like, let's not discount Georgia.
There are fireworks going off in my neighborhood.
Oh.
You hear that, Margie?
Yes.
Hear the fireworks?
Somewhere out there.
We're discussing. It is. Yeah, they're saying that.
The middle of the day, fireworks. That's right.
284. You check it out.
I hope it's not gunshots.
I think it sounds like fireworks. Yes. Yeah, glass half full.
It's fireworks.
Oh, Sylvia Potash is there too.
Tamar and Frida,
Sylvia.
beautiful job. Yashikoa to Tamar and Frida.
Sylvia's
Shabbat
on.
shalom, everyone.
All right, Shabbat Shalom.
Yes,
Shabbat
Shabbat shalom all.
Everybody.
And
Good to see
pray for our
everyone.
country.
Stay healthy.
We can celebrate.
Yes.
Yeah.